Hey, everybody. I think my sound's on. So nice to see your faces again. It's so funny that, like, I don't know how Zoom organizes it, but the same people are always on the top. So I don't know if you guys are like getting in there early or what, but Bridget. Who else do we have at the top? We got Craig at the top. We got Exie at the top. Lisa, Melissa. So nice to see you guys. It's so funny because I was on the break just having a couple of chats with some of the people in the group. And something I was saying is like, I just want to say to you guys, like, at least for permission, to give you guys permission. I know a lot of people are just getting started. This is the first time I have ever done a 2-day workshop like this. I didn't know how it was gonna go. I was nervous as heck when I first started. It's clicking that start button on that very first Zoom where I'm just like, my stomach's in knots. I'm like, can I do this? So I'm just gonna be real with you guys and just say it gets easier with every single session that we do. I like seeing your faces. Now you're like, we haven't been chatting, but you guys are starting to be familiar to me. I'm like, oh, look, they're back again. So thank you for like coming here and being with me, and also just having lovely energy, even though we're not interacting. I can kind of see your smiling faces and see you guys like nodding your head. Like, yeah, I'd love to see in the chat. If you guys want to put down if there's any like takeaways from this morning, like something that really like, you're like, wow, that really helped. Oh, you're welcome. Let's see who we got on. About 20 people. Let me see the gallery. I like looking at the gallery. It's funny if anybody's done like any kind of these Zoom things, it's like at first I almost don't want to look at everybody because I'm just like, I don't want to see all those faces. It makes me nervous. And now, oh, I see Roz in there. Hi, Roz. Hi. I see a lot of people that I know. Tanika. I don't see your picture, but I know that you're there. And Stephanie, and some new faces too. Dr. Dorothy, we've got a call coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
See you in there.
Hey, Nicole, sorry. I forgot I had another workshop this morning, so I have it today and tomorrow until 2.
Oh, well, we're recording, so you get to have those first two.
Yeah.
Do you have the workbook?
I did. I got that.
Okay,
Thanks.
sweet. Thanks guys for putting in your takeaways too. It's always good to like hear what you guys are really resonating with. Is there anybody who doesn't have the workbook? I don't want to have to go through it if you guys already have it. Just put in the chat if anybody needs the link. Sweet. So what are we doing today? This session is all about the 4 Ps. We got positioning, pricing, packaging, and profit. And I'm just gonna, just like before, just get into it, share my screen. I can hear a little bit of background noise. So if you haven't muted yourself, can you go through a mute? Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Thanks, guys. Let's see. It's a world in itself, just navigating the tech of being able to just like share your screen and minimize over here. Present. I just wanted to take a second to recognize all of you guys too for showing up and actually putting the time into your business. My intention is that what we do over the next 2 days is really, really helpful. But I think even just showing up and just being able to put this energy into your business, I really am like a big believer, a firm believer in focus and focus energy. I saw a little chat come up. Just want to make sure that that's not somebody needing a workbook. Okay. Oh, we have a baby. I missed the baby. It's funny. My one of our team members has two dogs, and so the dogs show up a lot on our calls too. There was like puppies, puppies and babies. Okay, let me look at the time. We are doing good. So brand positioning, I always like starting off with definitions. Brand positioning is the place you want to own in your target audience's mind. It seems very nefarious when I say it that way, like like we're like owning a place in someone's mind. All I mean by that is, what did we say in the very beginning, in the very first workshop, is that branding is all about perception. And so brand positioning is about that place in your target audience's mind where when they need a specific service, you're the person that they think of for that service. And there's other ways that it breaks down with positioning too in terms of price. Like, here's a good example of brand positioning. A good exercise, I actually have two examples to tell you guys. The first one is just a question around, like, if I was to, maybe you've heard this one before, but if I was to ask you, how much would you pay for, it's all you like, I don't know, an unbranded cup of coffee, just like a white cup that has coffee in it, cream and sugar. It makes me always think of like church fairs and things like that. What would you say? I might say like 50 cents or a dollar, I don't know, $1.50 or something like that. So, we're probably going to aim pretty low with just a cup of coffee. But Starbucks regularly charges $5 and more. I saw the other day, if you get like a medium coffee or a matcha latte, which is what I tend to get if I go to a Starbucks, I get my matcha latte, but like that's like $5.50. Talk about brand positioning, and there's lots of other examples, but one more that I wanted to share, and this is just, I think, draws a very nice point around the importance of branding, especially as we talk about pricing and price structuring and where you want to position yourself in the marketplace. So they had, I can't remember what university this is, but they had a bunch of college students. They showed them a picture of like a pair of gold earrings, and they asked them to price out, like, how much do you think that these gold earrings are worth? And I should write down the prices because I'm not very good with remembering numbers. So I'm going to average it out, and let's just say that these numbers are not completely accurate, but the spirit of it is correct. So they asked them to say, like, how much would you price these gold earrings out? And the average was, say, like $500 or something like that, unbranded, just a pair of gold earrings. Then they showed the same earrings, but in a Tiffany's box. And the group priced them at like $80 to $100 more than the unbranded. Then they put the same earrings next to a Walmart logo symbol and had them price it, and they priced them like $80 to $100 less than the baseline that was unbranded. So pricing and positioning, brand positioning matters. All it took was a Tiffany's box and the Tiffany's blue, which is copywritten or trademarked. That's like a color, like a trademarked color. It's like Tiffany's blue specifically. Just having it in the Tiffany's box, it anchors the price, anchors the brand, anchors the price in the prospect's mind. And so what we want to be able to do through our brand positioning is find a space where we can work up to charging more, because our brand positioning allows us, one, the confidence, and one, the opportunity to anchor our prices higher. And this is not about like getting over on your clients or being like overly salesy. This is just about, well, sometimes I think it's nice to take a little segue into saying, like, why is it important to charge more money? Why is it important to have brand positioning? And the reason, as I see it, is, one, we're in the business to make money, right? Like, we want to make, and I'm of the philosophy that money is amazing. I love making money. I really love making money, like, and I like to say that because I think that there's, especially if you kind of dance in the like spirited spiritual community, is like, like energy work or coaching or yoga. I was a yoga teacher for years. And so I think maybe some of you will resonate with me, and like often can feel like it's a dirty word, or it's a dirty little secret. It's just like, it's almost like we had, I would often feel this pressure of like, I'm just in business to like do good in the world. And that's part of it. But like, I also love making money. Like it feels really good. Like I love to have a successful business. I love to feel like, and I think a lot of you will resonate with that too. Like, even if you're not at the point where you're making a lot of money, it's just like the idea of having a really successful business that you built yourself or with a partner, or with a small team, and to feel exhilaration, that independence of just like, I built this myself and look, it's working. And so how do we take it from like it's working until it's thriving, and how do we take it from it's thriving till it's like so abundant? And that's fun, because when you're at that level, then you really get to, there's only so much you're going to need to invest in your business, especially if you're an online business. Like, that you get to a point where you're kind of like, well, we have all of the tools that we need, and this is how much money we need to invest in our business. It's different when you're a brick and mortar and you have rent to pay and utilities. But if you've got a laptop and you're doing like telemedicine, or you're doing coaching, or you have some kind of online service, like you'll very quickly like hit the limit of what you need to invest in your business. And you can always work up from that a little bit and say, right now I'm going to invest in business coaching, or I'm going to invest in being in a higher level mastermind that's like 1,000, 2,000. But I think what I'm trying to like take you with me on this journey of excitement, that when you get to a point where you are finding financial abundance in your business, there's so much to be able to give back, like, and that part excites me as well. It excites me as well as making money. But there's a real like there's a real beauty in charging more, because one, I think it lines you up with an up leveled version of a client. I think that not everybody's looking for the bottom barrel services. When we looked at that in one of our workshops today, where it was like 20%, 60%, and 20%, we can use the same similar kind of breakdown and say, probably something around 20% of your clients um, like not happy to pay a big price. Like no one's really happy to pay a big price, but are lined up with in the investment, are saying, I know that I need to invest more in quality in order to get the product or service that I want. So 60% may need some convincing about why the price is worth it. And that's our job as business owners, is to be able to convey the value of what we do so that they can line up with the price. And then that bottom 20% are either looking for a deal. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for a deal. And that can be hard once you're like, especially if you're doing coaching, is to just like elevate out of the 20% who are looking for the bottom barrel, the cheapest price. And I get approached with people like that all the time, in the business. And it's easy for me to just say, no, just no, thank you. There's lots of other people that will service you at that price point. But that took years, to get to the comfort level of being able to like stay an elevated brand position. In fact, I kind of moved kicking and screaming into a doubling my price, to a point where it was like, I'm sure you guys can resonate with that. You go like, oh my God, is anybody ever going to pay me at this price? And then you have to deal with what we talked about in the buying psychology, a whole new set of psychological, blockages come from that, where it's just like, am I worth this price level? Are my services worth it? Is the quality good enough? And these are all good questions to have. But I like this conversation around brand positioning, because I feel like there's some good internal psychological work to do here. Like, what did I do? I'm taking a little bit of a tangent here, but I'm just thinking, is there a moment for me to pause to say, was there anything that helped? And I mean, this is going to seem funny coming from me or obvious coming from me. The rebrand definitely helped move into more brand positioning. That for sure was I got new pictures. So for me, the visual aesthetic was a really big part in moving into an elevated brand position. I invested I invested in professional services in a way that I had never had before. I got my first set of professional pics. I got a whole new website. I got a whole new brand, and for the first time, I wasn't the one doing the work. Rebranded all of the documents that go out to clients, rebranded the social media. It's a lot of work, but I would say that that was one of the biggest like pivot points for myself. But then it was also just a little bit of grit, you know, a little bit of okay, I'm just gonna get on the sales call and you just whatever your price point is, if your price point is $50 or your price point is 10,000 and your price point is $50,000 or more, anyone on this call from whatever your price point is, you can resonate with the feeling of like, oh my God, am I really gonna say those words? Oh my God, am I really gonna say that price? And sometimes all it takes is just getting that first yes. And once you get that first yes, it just kind of locks into place some confidence that this is an offer. I really believe that you can sell most things for most price points. Um, and that kind of lines up with like the blue ocean marketing that we were talking about earlier, which is this feeling of like there's enough clients, there's enough abundance, there's enough. And part of that kind of lines up is that there are enough clients to pay you at a higher level too, so then the question is about, do you have the right kind of offer for them? Do you have the right archetype or avatar? Archetype is a fun thing to talk about. We'll have to do a different workshop for that specifically, but do you have the right avatar? Can you understand their pain point? Sometimes when we're talking more about affluence, so if you're looking, not everybody's looking for the highest brand positioning. I mean, a brand like Walmart is very happy with where they're at. They're very successful. A brand like Audi is very successful, like servicing like the lower end of the financial scale, so it's not, I don't want to like, I'm not so dogged that you have to like take the top brand positioning, because I don't want to be the most expensive branding agency. I don't want Logos can cost, and it will shock you probably to hear this, but people pay anywhere upwards of $100,000 for a logo. There are like six-figure logos out there and lots of them, especially in once you get to the corporate world and brand strategy and stuff like that. And so that was a big eye opener for me, that even within my industry, like I felt like I was moving into elevated prices, but I mean, there are many, many steps to go, but there's lots of questions around brand positioning, like, because as you step into a new echelon, there are a whole new set of questions, personality types, dependencies for that type of avatar, right? So what something that I noticed as I started to raise my prices was I was dealing with a business owner who was a lot easier to work with, because it was somebody who valued design, someone who valued my services, but also didn't have a lot of time, so then we had to go as a team and say, well, how do we help somebody who doesn't have a lot of time? Okay, so we can create, you can see how that starts to shape the questions, and it also shaped our marketing, because we were like, wait, we're not going to find people if it's a multi-thousand-dollar investment, right? Like, we're not always going to find people, the same people that we found on Facebook ads just scrolling Instagram. Why? Because this could be a busy entrepreneur, so what do we focus on? Oh, we focus on more on networking. We focus on being in mastermind groups. We focus in teaching in other people's masterminds groups. And that's just an example for us specifically, but just to kind of point out, like, one, not everybody is going for like the highest. I'm not going for the highest brand position, but I don't want to be the lowest either. Like, I want to be within range. I like that sweet spot of clients for myself. So we're not always rushing to, and I'm not suggesting that you rush to be the highest price person in the market. then there's this psychology around like raising your prices. And what I like to do, I like to double and then give myself a challenge. That's not for everybody's personality. I like the challenge of doubling and seeing, okay, can I sell at this? Like that's a personal challenge. Can I sell at this price point? And when you get those yeses and you go, oh yeah, I can sell at this price point. That's sweet to know. But if you're like, if you're not quite ready for that challenge, you could just up it by 25% of what you're selling right now, or have a certain number. Like I'm going to sell, I'll take my price is $500. I'll add another 250. So then I'm selling at 750. And if I can get 3 yeses, every time I get 3 yeses, I'm going to bump that up again. So after 3 yeses, then you have doubled your price. So there's a lot of things, and I don't want to go so far off in that tangent. I'm going to rein myself back in to positioning because we've got a lot of P's to get through. When I talk about brand positioning, there's 3 specific things that can help with brand positioning, or 3 ways of Venn diagram. So Venn diagram of brand positioning. The first one is relevance. So relevance, and these are good questions to ask. It's not in our workbook, but I like these questions though. One is, what do your customers care about? For relevance. What do your customers care about? So, how can you be relevant to your customers? The second one is expert or expertise. What can you own? What are you? Is like the sweet spot of where these things come together. So, where your expertise, what can you own? We can own branding, we can own websites. You can kind of niche down further and further. Some people are just like, we own branding for tech startups or something like that. What can you own in your industry? What do your customers care about? What's relevant to them? And what makes you different? What makes you unique? And you may look at this and not have all those answers right now, but there are very important questions to come back to, and come back to regularly too, around your brand positioning. If you feel like you're ready for a rebrand, if you feel like you're ready to raise your prices, excited about it, coming back to these questions: what can you own? What makes you different? And what do your customers care about? Get you into, can you like nail this sweet spot in here? Then you have a lot of leverage to um, elevate your brand position. So, a couple little reasons why brand positioning is important. Number one is it creates marketing differentiation. So, you have a platform, and you have to develop your confidence muscles, because when somebody comes to you and they say, well, why should I work with you versus, Susie down the road, who's like, I can get for $200 cheaper. You need to be able to have the answers to those questions and really showcase why you're different. And that's what branding work is all about. Like, why, you may not have that answer right now, but it takes a little bit of soul searching. It takes a little bit of going through the workbook today, thinking about this as you're getting ready for bed, like, what makes me different? What makes me different? How can I communicate? Right. You can go, real world example, you can go down and you can get a $50 logo from someone. You can go on Fiverr right now and probably get a $5 logo. Like, what makes it different than a logo as an investment? So I need to be able to sit down with somebody and share why we're different, what you get more than just a logo, like what you get from working with a team of professionals with lots of years of experience and personality and things like that. I don't need to go into all that stuff, but just thinking about, like, those are objections that are going to come from potential clients. Not that 20% that's like super fans and they're ready to book with you, but from that 60% that need a little bit of a little push, they need a little help, they're going to have questions like that. So brand positioning creates market differentiation. It also makes it easier for people to buy from you and to compete on price too. When you're able to just kind of very clearly say, like, this is where we're at in the market. So here's a real world example. We have, I have like a price threshold that if people ask like, hey, I want to like buy your package, but I want to break it apart and I only need this part, I'm able confidently now to say, because I chose this, to say, sorry, we don't do anything less than X. Like that's the bottom line. It takes a little while, especially if you're just getting started. You're just like, I'm not at that place yet. And sometimes, you got to start where you got to start. And sometimes that means taking on non-ideal clients. Sometimes it means doing work for low cost or free. But as you have those leveraging points, you get to a place where um, it's easier to just like stay really rock solid in your pricing structure and say, sorry, that we don't do anything less than this, or we don't do one-off coaching. We just book in packages of 6 or something like that. I'm thinking if you're like a health coach um, or something like that. So I think this is the last one here. Yeah. Is brand positioning amplifies your storytelling, your copy, and your messaging. Thinking about like having a higher level of client in myself allowed me a lot of clarity around like, what do we post on social media, what kind of voice. And I think we have the voice workshop is next, so we'll go a little bit deeper into that. It helps me make decisions. It helps me to very easily say, is this on brand or is this not on brand? Does this feel um upscale or not? Does it feel like something I just threw together, or does it feel like something that's quality? So it helps me with my messaging. It helps me with telling the story of our brand. When we first started, I told a little story about our $54,000 rebrand. That becomes part of the storytelling. That becomes part, and it's intentional. I also want to share and connect, but it's something that we have in our brand story arsenal, and everyone has like it. I don't want to go down this train because we're going to go into this next around the storytelling side of it, but I think we all have a story that connects with potentially our ideal avatar. Let's see where we're at time wise. Okay, looking good. So I want to talk just a little bit these last couple slides around pricing and offerings, because the work that we're going to do in our workbook is around offerings specifically, and a little bit with pricing. Now, this is a strategy some people ask around questions of like how do you put together offerings? How do you price things? And I like this strategy, and this is just one out of many, but I think it's one that's really helpful and relatable. And it's a good, better, best strategy. There's a couple examples of one of my favorite examples that I think is really relatable, that as soon as you see it, you're like, it's like Gap Incorporated. So Gap, as the main parent brand, has Old Navy, good; Gap, better; Banana Republic, best. And I think most people will kind of, especially for the US, sorry if you're non-US and that doesn't really make sense, but like when you think about it, if you have a perception around all 3 of those brands, if you have the same parent company, you can already see how different the pricing structure is, and you can see like the type of shopper, the type of client, right? An Old Navy person is not necessarily a Banana Republic person. Some Banana Republic people would probably be caught dead before they were shopping in Old Navy. And then, so that's one around like, how does that translate to real world? That translates to having maybe 3 different pricing tiers. One that's an entry level, that's a smallest version of what you offer, gets people kind of in at the ground floor. At Brand Better, we have our brand audits. That's a couple $100s. When you're anchoring somebody at a high price point, multiple thousands of dollars to just like to work together, and then someone says, oh, I'm sorry, I would love to work with you, but that's really out of my budget. It's very helpful to be able to turn around and say, well, we actually have like a $300 offering. This is how much it costs. I mean, that's how much it costs. This is what you get with that. And I think there's a real nice flow to pricing psychology. So it feels like a win-win. Like we have still gotten like business from you. So we get to work with you. You become like the lowest tier client of ours, with the hope that you'll walk up that stair step with us of the good, better, best, like good being, and this is just one example. Just I like to talk from how we do it in house, but one example of like how do you get somebody to take that first step with you. And it's a lot easier when you've anchored something that they want that's at a much higher price point and they're able to say, yeah, I want that, but I can't afford that right now, but I really want to start working with you. Okay, well, we have something where you can take the first step. And I hope that as you listen to that, you can kind of see how that might translate into your industry too. Coaching, anything in the service industry, anything in the coaching industry, having something that's at the lower tier price point, having something that's kind of a mid tier, and then having obviously your creme de la creme best offer, which is like the version of a Banana Republic, but could be some kind of like all inclusive VIP, just like this kind of segues me into something that I wanted to say about like having a VIP and having like a top tier offer. A lot of us, especially, people are on the call, we're like DIYers. You're here taking notes. You're just like, I'm going to get through, do all this branding stuff myself, figure out how to do it. It's hard to look at our offerings and say, how many years I was just like, I wouldn't pay for that. Nope. I wouldn't invest in that. And it's hard to sell something if you yourself are not doing the investment. And that's something that I learned very strongly, like in the last year or two, is there is something to investing in yourself and your business. Like it's hard to sell coaching packages if you're not booking a coach, and I understand it's just like, but I don't have money to do that yet. Or great, then you're in your client's shoes. You can understand what's the psychology, what is the blockages keeping you from getting there, because a lot of times like people will find the money to do what they want. And so if you're not investing in your business, in other people's services, it's way more difficult to get other people to pay for yours. So I'm not telling you to do anything, just offering a little bit of advice there that there is something that really helps with your confidence if you start investing. And I'm not saying in branding necessarily, but just in business coaching, in hiring a professional for something, so we all have, especially if you're a solopreneur or you're a very small team, you probably have lots of different things that you do yourself. Like, oh, I record the podcast and I edit it myself and I do the website and I've done my own branding and I am my own business coach and I just watched the free YouTube videos and I learned how to do everything. I mean, list it out. All of us watching, all of us here do lots of different things, wear lots of different hats. I am going to challenge you next year to invest at a higher level in something. So whether that's a mastermind, whether that's business coaching, whether that's having some professional produce your podcast, whether that's hiring a branding expert, redoing your website, there's a beautiful confidence booster that really infuses your sales if you yourself are also investing in your business, because you get to walk through that. And I hadn't done that until last year. Like I had done everything myself. And so I didn't know what it felt like to spend $6,000 on some kind of like service thing. I didn't know what it felt like to spend $1,000 to get professional pictures taken because I had just done it myself. So I was missing like those key elements to connecting with my ideal client because I hadn't walked in their shoes. So I think that's just a nice way of thinking about it, and also a challenge for yourself. So noticing, like I mentioned in our earlier workshop, that every time I invest at a high level, I always have some psychological backlash. And until you go through that yourself, you can't really connect with your target audience, with where they're at when you're asking them to also invest in invest in their healing. Like if you haven't invested in and it doesn't have to be one for one. I'm not being so literal that I'm saying like you can't ask people to invest in your health coaching services unless you've had a health coach, you know. Sometimes we're working with people where we don't share the same issues as them, but on some level, if you're at a comparable price point, right? So if you're offering $500 services, are you ready to invest in a $500 service? 4,000, 12,000, 20,000, you know, we could get like dazzled by the numbers, but it makes it a lot more flowing, I think, when you're already in that energy of just like, yes, this is what I invest in these services too. And then this last little one here, is really just the importance of branding your packaging and offerings. Now, this is kind of like an asterisk or just some like bonus homework for you guys, because not everybody brands packages and offerings, and you don't have to brand package and offerings. But I think if you're trying to capture an up-leveled brand position, having branded packages and offerings really makes a big difference. So I'm going to go back to an earlier example and just bring Starbucks back into the mix again, because they're a good like gold standard of like a well-known brand that captures like a huge marketplace and charges a premium. Now, what did they do when they I don't know if this is when they launched or at what point this decision was made, but they don't say small, medium, and large. They have the tall, they have the grande, they have the venti, you know, they make it seem that is a branded offering. And that is a good, better, best, you know, the good is the tall and the the grande and then the venti. It's funny, I always still like the little secret about me, like I'll still always order small, medium, and large when I go to a Starbucks on purpose, just because I don't want to have to say venti or grande or try to remember which one is a venti and which one is a grande. So I'm that person that will always I'll always order just a medium or a small. My rebellious streak. But I hope that's a good example of like branding and offering in a package, and how that works for your own business is, you know, to give them names, you know, instead of just like package 1 2 3, actually give it a branded name. You know, give your packages and your offerings. If you really want to go in depth, you know, you can we'll do visual branding tomorrow, but you can play with color. You know, how does color affect, like package 1 has a really cool name that matches with my brand. It has a specific color to it. So it feels like this is what I'm getting, you know? And I think that when you put all those things together, branding, using both the visual and also the naming side of it, it adds to just a little bit of that more professional veneer, you know? And some people are just like not even at that point. So I offer this as just like a bonus, some bonus things to do. But I love when people have an online program and they do the work of like completely branding that program too. Like a good example of that is Marie Forleo. So she's got Marie Forleo, that's her main brand. She's got Marie TV, that's another sub brand, but then she has B School. And when you go to B School, it's a completely unique thing. It has its own color scheme, it has its own logo, it has its own website. And I love that. You know, I think it really adds, that's like, when I took B School 2014-15, it was maybe like a $2,000 price point. That was the first big investment that I made in my business. And it was the professionalism of how it was all packaged and put together, the fact that it had a name and colors, and also the information was really good too. But the way it was packaged made it worth a $2,000 course, you know? And I will always say that if you offer me two different types of information, I mean, two identical pieces of information, right? It's like a really great way to, I don't know, learn watercolors or something like that. If you have those two pieces of information that are exactly the same, I will always want to pay more for the one that looks better. And that's just me, but I think most people are like that. And we'll go tomorrow when we talk about visual branding. I'm going to share some stats with you about how much visual branding actually does make a difference for people. So we got a couple more minutes left. I want to dig into least make sure that we're spending a little bit of time here on um, this part of the workbook. So let me go over and see what we got. We've got a lot of chat things here. I see we got a medium cappuccino. See, we also bras. Yep, small. I love it. I love that there's other people going into that. Oh, Dan, that's really helpful. So Dan saying my business mentor told me that if you offer 3 packages, 75% choose the middle, 15 the most expensive, and 15 would choose the lowest. I think that that's probably a good, it kind of like works out pretty similar to the numbers we were saying before too. It's like that bell curve. So I think for most industries, that probably is a good rule of thumb. Dan says he's happy to send those 100,000K logo clients to me. Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so you guys, if you want to get started working on this part, so what we're doing here is I want to just have a good sense of what your offerings are. And this is like 2 parts. So for section 3, we actually have 2 worksheets here. The first one is offerings. And sorry that it says term here because that's not really, I forgot to change that. Oh, that's because I'm not on the right thing. Offerings. So let's write down what your offers are. Maybe you don't have 3, but maybe you have more, but let's just do I would start with your most popular offer, meaning the one that makes you the most money. Popular in your mind because you make money. So this is a good way of making decisions around what kind of offerings you have, what you're putting out there. I like to do this periodically where you're just writing down your offers. You may have to come back and do the units sold, but since we're at the end of the year, it'd be good to have like a baseline of for offering 1, how much did you sell of that? You know, if it's for me, it's like a brand audit. How many brand audits did we sell? Okay, X, you know, branding, package, how many of those did we sell? Okay, then we have that too. So write down your offerings. We've got description, prices, units sold. And what I want to get a pulse on here too, even if you're going back through this later on and working with it, is like, how do you feel about this offer? Like feeling for me is very important, that feeling space. So how do you like, is it something that lights you up? You know, so maybe you have like one that's not super popular and you don't really like to do it and you're just kind of like, I don't know, like I'd rather do 6-week coaching packages than meeting up with one person one time, you know. So I want to get a pulse too on like, how do you feel for each offer? Is it something that still feels relevant? Is an offer that you'd still like to do in the new year? And then when you're done that, you can move down here to the new offerings. And the way that I structured this is we've got short, medium, and long term. And so I'd like one idea, this is my homework for you guys, is one idea for an offering that you could put out in the short term, medium, and long term that's going to generate revenue for you. Because a lot of reasons, like, let's not be like kidding ourselves. Like, we're all here because we're like, how do we make more money in our business next year? You know, there's other sub questions around like, I think there's very few people who are here just because you're like super in love with branding and you're just like, I want to learn everything there is to learn about branding. I think we're all here for a purpose, you know? So what are some ideas of things that you can offer next year that could potentially make short, medium, and long-term revenue? I was talking to, and I don't have my screen up to see her, but I don't know if she's here, but I was talking to Bobby. We were talking just during the break. And one of the things that came up, I'm not going to overshare about your business, Bobby, but we were talking about this like reverse bell curve that happens with potential clients, you know. And something that I was saying that, and I could share with you guys, and hopefully this saves a lot of time and frustration. I used to create programs and content and offerings for those who are just generally curious about an issue. Meaning like when here's a real world example. So when I was doing my menstrual cycle business, I made this whole series of different courses and programs that all interlocked and put a lot of time into putting this course together. And it was all about like it was like curiosity around how the menstrual cycle works. It was talking to the optimizers. Like it was talking to somebody who like for fun reads a book about hormones because that's what I do. So I couldn't see, and as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are very curious and creative and have a lot of ideas, but that's not really the status quo. And for better or for worse, a lot of people are status quo. So a good example is like, when do people go to the doctor when something's going wrong? When do people go to a health coach when something's going wrong? Um, when do people invest in a business coach when they're not making any money? There's not a lot of people who exist in the bottom here of this flipped bell curve where they're just interested in information for purely information's sake, where they just want to learn about X just because it would be pleasing to learn something new. That's not how the bulk of people work. The bulk of people, this upside down bell curve is, in the beginning, you have a lot of people up here who are interested in information when they're starting something new. I'm building a new business, that was a B school is a good example, or some kind of online business course, or get your health kick started, or in January you hire a personal trainer to work with or something. People are very motivated in the beginning, like teach me what I need to know so I can get it done. People are very motivated at the end, or I say at the end, but it just means like at this back part of the bell curve, which is things are going wrong and I need some help to like my health is going down, or I'm overweight now, or my relationship is totally on the fritz. Anything like that, there's a lot of activity there, but there's not a lot of activity for some people, for a lot of people in the middle, which is just like, how do I take a good business and make it better? How do I take a good, healthy body and make it even more optimized? That's definitely a niche market. And if that's where you're at in your market, more power to you, because there is money to be made there too. There's money, but it's very specific. I think I'm saying this more generally when you're thinking about creating content. Don't waste a lot of time creating content for the people who are merely curious about your topic, right? And so that brings me back to what I was saying, like there's not many people here that are just curious about branding. There's not many people here who are just like, I just want to spend 2 days like learning like what's branding all about. If you are, you're in the minority. Most people are here to see how branding can help you make more money, to save to save you time and like not making mistakes. Like, what do you need to do? And I think if you can take that spirit, just think of why you're here and apply that to your own content creation for people, because it will save you, like I said, a lot of time and heartache, especially if you're a curious person like me who does just read books about random subjects just for fun. Like, I like to do a lot of things just for fun, and I also like to do a lot of things to um get better at something that's already good. Like, I have a healthy body. Why don't I learn this kind of yoga technique or a breathing technique or something to make that even better? But a lot of people are not like that, so if time, like, create content for those bookended sides, the people who are just getting started and the people who are having a problem. If you can identify those two, or if you resonate with one more than the other, start really funneling channeling your energy into creating content for those populations. And if it feels fun to just kind of like, the guide to, like, you've got a great brand, how to make it even better. There's not many people in that category. People are like, I'm just getting started and I don't have a brand, or I'm not making money, things aren't working. I have an intuition that it's just kind of off. I need help, so people are in those two camps. Um, yes. Let me get back to see all of your beautiful faces. We got about a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back for the very last workshop of the day. Um, yeah, Roz, DIY to group program to one is how you learn this pricing. Yep. Um, I'm not sure about that question. How do you do these offerings if you run a product-based business? Um, I think what I was saying was probably more for the service-based businesses, but but branding affects product-based businesses maybe even more, like how do you have um different names, different color, like how do you use the visual? How do you use like graphic mock-ups to make the products look amazing? That's something that's a lot easier to do now than it ever has been, where before it would have to be like can you type in the chat like what business is it? What kind of products? Just so I have a better idea. No, I haven't gotten it yet. I think it's going through the interwebs. Oh, here we go. Handmade bath and self-care items, soap, bath bombs, candles. Well, I think like for me, 3-tier offerings with product based, especially if those, what the first thing that comes to mind is like a small package that just has a couple of your products, right? It's the mini version, like a self-care light, or this is like a Sunday night special, something like that. And it just has a couple little items that you need to just get you through like one evening of self-care, and it's at a lower price point. And then just creating bigger packages until you have that like total luxurious pampering thing, and give it a sweet name, give it a beautiful graphic that has everything together so it looks, and then do an extra touch. Like what if, I don't know all the details about how everything's distributed, but maybe that comes in a really beautiful box, like a keepsake box or something like that. And that's just like, I'm just throwing out an idea, but there's a way I think to do the good, better, best with the products, but it's about bundling and how you visually package them together too, is probably what I'd say. Give them like put some gold in there. Anything, anything gold, just like. All right, guys, I need to go. Wait, Zoom girls night where the groups purchase the product and have wine and use them. Yeah. Yes, take a screenshot of that one. Roz coming in at the last second with the idea. All right, I got to refresh for the next couple of minutes, but I'll see you guys on the flip side for our 3 o'clock workshop. Bye, everyone.